Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Literature,
where we apply the revolutionary Mott scale
to classic and contemporary works of prose.
So, join us once again, won't you?
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals, and welcome back to the Lost Signals Discusses and Reviews Literature. I am your creepy host, standing in the living room corner, Scott Thurlow, here with my affluent yet sort of aloof friends, Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Although Christmas was, like weeks ago.
Yeah, well, this is coming out after Christmas, but it's like 2 days after Christmas in the present time.
Fair enough.
And Chris Morgan.
And aloof, Happy New Year to you.
Yes, and so we are doing a Christmas-y themed short story. It is called The Christmas Tree and the Wedding by famed author Fyodor Dostoyevsky. He of the Russian nationality from 1848. And so just a quick back story. I tried to look for, I think I searched for weird Christmas stories, and this is like number one on the list that came up with one of the first results.
It certainly is a weird Christmas story.
And because obviously I recognize the name, I'm like, let's see what this one's like. So it's sort of randomly chosen, and again, for the holiday-ish thematic connection, we're going to do it and review it, and I have got the logline for it. It is, All I Want for Christmas is a Wealthy Child Bride. And with that...
So we all.
Yes, because of that, why don't you tell us about the plot of the story?
Man is at a party. And is observing the party. And he observes a distinguished citizen who is promised, in a sense, or has this child bride promised to him, and the child bride has quite a bit of a dowry, which is what makes her appealing. And the child bride has his young red-headed friend who is the son of a governess, and
little scamp.
Yeah, a little bit of scamp, and the distinguished citizen doesn't like the young scamp. Such a low level.
Macking on his girl.
Yeah, exactly. And so he ends up huffing and puffing. The narrator finds this hilarious. And then sometime later, the narrator is walking down the street, sees the wedding between the...
At 5 years later, I believe. So she's 11 in the party, and then 5 years later...
16 when she gets married.
He sees her at the wedding, yep.
And he sees the distinguished citizen who's kind of a jerkwad marrying his young bride and getting all that money, and it's kind of a weird Christmas tale.
It's sort of like not quite a...
Not as weird, Christmas tale.
Yeah.
It's just a weird tale to tell around Christmas because it's a pretty down... Who'd have thought that Dostoyevsky had a downer tale?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Obviously, it's very Russian influence. It's like basically a dark joke, pretty much, the whole thing. So, like, given that, what do you think of it score-wise?
I liked the narrative structure because it's subversive on what you assume is going to happen. You're led... It's almost a garden path tale, which you're led to believe that there will be a happy ending between this poor young man and the woman who... They obviously have a connection there. And it turns out, no.
Nope, life is crueler than that.
Gaston ends up with Belle in the end. And... So yeah, there's a nice twist. It's fairly short work, but I mean, I have no reason to not give it a 3 in a sense, because there's an arc, there's a twist. The characters are fleshed out for
well enough for
it. So yeah, I have no reason not to, unless one of you guys can convince me otherwise.
What do you think, Chris?
I have no reason not to give it a 3. I was actually going to give it a 2 because it's mentioned, it's like titles The Christmas Tree, and it's just a texture to it, but it is an 8. Like I said, there's no reason for me not to give it a 3.
All right.
Narratively speaking.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's nice and concise, short. It's a very short story. It's like 6 pages or less. But yeah, it has that Russian flavor to it, I guess I want to say, that it's sort of like a darker twist at least. And I think it's all very nicely contained within itself.
I'm interested when you say Russian flavor to it, but does it have a Dostoevsky flavor to it? And you're just now group all the Russian writing into it? I've read quite a bit.
Maybe broad brushing a bit, but we have referenced before, like, just the nature, like, some of these stories, especially around this era, like, have that sort of feel to them. Yeah. And I think this one is no exception. And many of them do happen to come from the region of Russia, yes. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I agree, like, it's, for what it is, I think it goes by very nicely. It's basically not quite a Shaggy Dog story, but kind of, but with,
That's guarded path.
Yeah,
You're led down a path.
exactly.
And then all of a sudden you're...
And yeah, the final little twist is like, again, sort of a more bitter than sweet, if you will. And hey, that's life.
Huh?
So I am
Especially
also...
in,
especially in Russia. Exactly. I was going to hesitate to say that, but I'm glad you followed it up. So yeah, so I think we're all giving plot 3s, and we're going to move on to themes, and that'll be you, Chris. Rich people always get what they want, even if it's
Rich
literal
people
girls.
always get all right. So I read this story twice because I didn't catch the little nuances that with the dowry and this guy was sizing up his investment. I was just like, God damn, this guy's a pedophile. But I reread it because
He's just calculating.
Well, yeah, he is very calculated.
The good news, he's not a pedophile in the sense that he doesn't desire her for her youth. He desires her for her money, and that's that's what's important.
And Soviet Russia, don't even have a fault there.
Mm-hmm.
The themes of this are basically it's about it's about arranged marriages, so to speak, in that you can buy into an arranged marriage. I found the whole thing detestable, but that doesn't remove the fact that thematically, what is it about? Some guy's going in there and trying to protect, literally protecting his investment from her little brother.
No, not her brother.
Wasn't her brother?
No. It was the son of like the governess, the maid that she played with.
Oh yeah.
It was like her best friend, but they weren't related.
That's right. He's protecting his investment from the little girl's peer. I'm really stuck on the themes because I don't really see a greater theme beyond arranged marriages and some old portly gentleman protecting his investment. And so I'm pretty just emotionally, in terms of my values, I'm ready to give this a 0. But I'm trying to separate myself from the narrative beyond my personal biases of the situation.
So this is a Christmas Carol, though, where Scrooge doesn't have a change of heart.
Yes, exactly. That's well said.
I mean, maybe if some ghosts had shown up, he would have let the natural love between two young people bloom. But no, he gets his money. So I think it's again it's taking what should be a happy tale of youth and love and class
around Christmas,
matter. Yeah. And the young boy, because of true love, that he's moved up from being this the poor son of a government. One, he doesn't get a place in the guy's household because the guy's jealous, and two, the jerkwad wins, and it doesn't matter what your viewpoint on what fairy tales should be like. This is the cold hard reality of class and.
That's basically what I'm saying. Like, yes, I mean, that's all contained therein. Like, that's life sometimes. Rich assholes often get their way, and we see it here. It blows, but as you said, that's what happens in life. It happened in 1848, and it's still happening today.
It's like, speaking of Christmas tales, It's a Wonderful Life. What's the guy's name? Not the banker.
Potter, Mr. Potter.
Mr. Potter wins.
Mr. Potter gets married.
Except that there is, he gets the money at the end, but like, there's a facade of happiness over It's a Wonderful Life. This doesn't have that facade.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Mr. Potter wins.
Yeah,
it actually ends on some kind of cruel joke in a way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Life?
I hope he dies and she sells his bed curtains to old Joe.
Okay.
So.
Probably not. She's probably going to die in childbirth.
Jesus.
Or he'll find another girl who's worth more and divorce her.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Not all Christmas tales are happy.
Yeah,
and
like I said, I searched for weird Christmas tales, and this one came up. And yeah, I think that is the theme. Like, yeah, sometimes life is cool, and bad people get away with bad things, or at least with ill intentions. And true love does not always win. Youthful exuberance does not win out over the cold, cruel, calculating realities of life.
I'm giving this a strong 1.
Yes, I also am as well.
Yeah.
So what? That means you are as well now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you weren't sure at first.
Well, you guys convinced me.
All right. I mean, to me, that was
it may be very
theme.
cynical, but it's,
but that's what.
Yeah, it's definitely
saying.
Getting 1. I mean, even Dostoyevsky. Yeah, right. Even he admits that it's some kind of cruel joke. So
all you can do is sit back and laugh.
Yep, Schadenfreude is all the joy that's left in the world. Anyway, with that, I'll go on to antagonist. rich assholes. Like, again, like, so this is sort of a voyeuristic story. It's just, the narrator, I think, is unnamed even. It's just like, I was at a Christmas party 5 years ago and I saw this weird little exchange with this dude and the guest and the little girl and her friend. And then 5 years later, I recognized them getting married. Looks like he was right. He bet on the right horse, if you will. Right? He made the right moves to move up in life. So, like, I don't know. The cruelty of life, like the happenstance, the changing fortunes, and just, you said, certainly classism is part of it, for sure. So, like, while that might not be, what's his name? The actual guy who marries him, Julian Mastovich, he might not be, like, antagonistic towards the narrator, who's basically aloof and, like, sort of amused by it all.
I think, though, it's a cynical aloofness, because he obviously doesn't agree.
Sure, he still thinks the guy's a buffoon.
It's noteworthy because it's a guy he doesn't think deserves to win winning. So it is an antagonism, not in the sense of him being pressured, but like in him having actually Weltschmerz is probably the more German one. We're looking at the pain of the world as how it is versus how it should be.
No, I like that. And if we're going to view that as antagonist, which I think is totally valid, I think I might be inclined to give it a 1, but what's your take?
Are we counting Julian Mastakovich as the antagonist?
I mean, you can, like I said, like, it's kind of odd.
I mean, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
so.
for sure, but not like to the narrator directly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, it's noteworthy. Like,
but he represents, like, the idea, like, what
he's emblematic of what
exactly.
I think the narrator views as the problem.
That's the word I want, yes. Very well said.
As a democratic socialist, I have to give him a 1 then.
Okay. I mean, I'm giving a 1 on the front even before that. But yeah, I still think it's effective. Like you said, it's more of he embodies that idea in a sense, physically in the story. And I think it was well done. And but as cynical and, again, unfortunate as it may be, that's life. Them's the breaks, I guess I'll say. Yeah. So let's move on to protagonist, speaking of that, with you, E.
The narrator, and I think that even though you don't have Dostoyevsky is a very talented writer. I think perhaps my favorite writer of all time, if not my top, like 3 or something like that. And he imparts a lot of knowledge through the way the narrator looks at the world and what he decides to talk about. And he very much to Dostoyevsky, he focuses on those who life treats poorly, those who...
The downtrodden is over.
The first person he describes at the party is a well-off individual who is in the corner alone, who's brought in just by a connection. So he's always interested in those in the underground, if you will.
Yes, exactly. Like the people who slip through the cracks of society.
Is that the whisker guy?
Yes.
Yes. But just his observations tell you everything you need to know about him, even if you don't have a backstory for him.
Yeah,
I think that allows. We have an antagonist because we know who the narrator is, even though we don't know who he is. Details about him, and I think that makes it an effective protagonist.
Yeah, it's not unreliable, but details are sparse, we'll say, right? They're sort of like sketched in there, but you do get at least some sense of the narrator via what he chooses to describe and and how he chooses to describe it. So I think it's pretty fair, pretty solid.
And he laughs in the guy's face. I mean,
yeah, he's kind of a jerk himself, but like sort of justifiably so.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Chris?
No, narratively, I have to give him a 1.
Okay. And let's move on to secondary. That'll be you as well, Chris.
The secondary are pretty much all the little children there.
I guess like the parents, like the wealthy parents.
The child bride with this guy, this detestable guy, this 11-year-old, and her friend. Actually, she's trying to protect him.
Yeah, that's true.
Mastakovich wants to have him dismissed for...
It's like he feels threatened by the presence of this another 11-year-old kid.
Which is super duper creepy.
Ginger. I'm threatened by
yes.
Yeah, and if somebody's married to a ginger, I get offense to that.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not, I don't know. But no, I digress. I think because their interaction, this 11-year-old and her friend, the fact that she's very protective of him and is gauging some creepiness from this old asshole, I think it more than adds a texture to it. It actually shows the other side of it, the unwillingness of because even at the end, I was trying not to say victim, But the little girl, but yeah, she's a victim. Even on her wedding day, she's crying. He mentions that her eyes are.
It's tragic circumstance.
Yeah, it is tragic. Without her reaction, there would be really no weight to this story. And just her alone, I have to give her a 1.
This one I wasn't sure about. Like, yes, that little moment, like that little vignette scene is well done, but there's not much beyond her. Like, she's almost like a literal object in more ways than one to the characters and almost to the story. So, like,
but I think that the narrator, again, by his observations, develops even like. All right, I had to bring up. Sorry, I promised I'd bring up other things. I've read a bunch of Gogol, and his is almost the fact that he talks about classism in Russia, but in a way that you almost had to be there. I feel he takes all the supporting characters in here, whether it's kind of a random kid and how he's reacting to having
his plate
the redheaded as a play, and then decide not to have the redheaded child there anymore. I think that he really builds the classism very, very well, and you get a good sense of the
party goers and everything,
which is the main point of it, to the theme. So I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, but I think that overall, like, it's a microcosm of society that he's building with fleeting characters, but really giving
it's like a mosaic
impression of that society.
Yeah, good, Chris.
Without her, there'd be like no gravitas. Without her, it would be some smarmy guy. Yeah, there'd be an observation of some smarmy guy, and at least the fact that he gives credence to her character, that she's protective of her friend, that she does. That she is in a lot of ways a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, true.
I mean, without her, to me, this would be a completely emotionless piece.
That's true.
Sure. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I just don't know, like, going into it, if there was enough on the secondary characters to give it a 1. But I think you made a pretty good point. They sort of like collectively create us like a weave, if you will, that does portray like society as a whole and the stratification of it via just like these sort of like, again, you can I envisioned the party very well, like very vividly, if you will, when I was reading it. So I think that goes a long way to perhaps lending credence to giving it a 1 here, even though I wasn't sure going in.
Fair enough.
And are you as well, Chris?
Yeah, I'm giving him 1.
Alrighty.
Giving her 1.
Alright. Well, that'll bring me to dialogue, and I don't see, like, so it's weird because, yes, Dostoyevsky is a very famous writer, but I wasn't obviously familiar with this story, and there's not actually much dialogue. There's a couple of things there, but there's some lines where, like, the narrator, like, insults him outright, and I think that's funny. Like, again, it's darkly funny. It's not like, ha-ha, but there isn't much spoken, but I think what's there, like, a lot of it will bleed into style probably in a second, but I think, like, the actual dialogue, and maybe we can say his descriptions we sometimes come across as where it's, like, internal-ish, but for the most part, like, for example, he insults the guy at the very end by, like, offhanding, like, oh, is he married? Like, and that's sort of a social faux pas at the end. And, like, the very last line is the narrator going, well, then his calculations were correct, like, and then walks away. So I think, like, it fits, even though there's not much of it, I think it does work. So that's how I'm looking at it.
I really like the jerkwad walking up to the girl, doing his calculations out loud. About how much she'll be worth.
Right. He's like counting on his fingers, like, in 5 years and then 20,000 rubles or whatever. Yeah. I forgot about that.
I don't know, though. Chris, what do you have to say?
Without the dialogue, without the girl's dialogue, pleading for her friend to stay, without the dialogue, whatever little dialogue there is, you would not get the empathy and you would not get how detestable this asshole is. So I mean, like it goes.
He's described literally as a buffoon.
Yeah, but it goes to the reason I gave supporting character 1.
Gotcha.
It goes into it fleshes out her character beyond just an observation. I mean, he's, even though this might be the game of telephone where this is secondhand information, without that reaction, he could have described her without the dialogue. Saying that she issued a protest against having her friend expelled from the room. But I like the fact that she's like, it's a lot of go away. He's like saying, go away, go to the other room, play with your playmates. And
Sure,
she's
it's very
like,
straightforward.
I don't want him to. I mean, the thing is, a lot of the way I view dialogue is not just the fact that if it's like, just shit dialogue on the page that just doesn't sound doesn't sound natural and modeling, but does the dialogue really serve a purpose? And in a first person narrative, and I know this really comes. This is a theme of ours, like, dialogue in a first person narrative, how effective it is. And in this case, I'm going to say this is an example of where less is more, that what little dialogue there is in a first person narrative does add gravitas to the supporting characters, does give her weight.
That is very, very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you convinced me into a 1.
Yeah, good job, me as well. Like, stronger than I maybe was going into it, but very solid. All right, so speaking of E, why don't you talk about the style? Dostoyevsky. I can say that. Yeah.
I think he, again, one of the most talented writers of all time. He does so much with so little.
That's what it is. Yeah, same thing. Like similar to what Chris just said, for sure.
And the thing is, it might have sounded like that was not necessarily bullshit, but it might have sounded like, oh, you're overreading into the intention of an author with how he paces out his dialogue. But with Dostoyevsky, it's like, no.
It is very measured
actually puts a lot of thought into every single aspect of his writing. And I have to give it a 1 because it's a strong piece by him, not as strong as Crime and Punishment or anything like
sure,
that.
Certainly not his most famous work, but still.
But done very well and hits all the points without overstaying its welcome at all.
Dickens was paid by the word, so you knew every minute detail. And this is the flip side of being able to catch the essence, the flavors, the visuals with fewer words. And both give you a really great sense of what's going on. I have to give this a 1 because of that. I got everything he was saying. I haven't read much Dostoyevsky. Why the fuck? Any other time I can pronounce his...
Good old Fyodor, we'll call him.
Fyodor. But I did get a good sense of the sights, the sounds, the flavors, the textures of the room, in very few words. So yeah, definitely give it a 1.
Yeah, like simple, concise, almost, again, not quite Hemingway-esque, but definitely not Dickensian, as you mentioned, either, right? It's to the point, but you get everything you need to know. It's very measured, as you said. He knows when to sort of be restrained, which is most of the time, and then sort of amp it up just a little bit, but again, not going too crazy, and just goes a long way. And yeah, like you started out with it. If you're familiar with him, he's one of the most famous and well-known writers of that sort of era. And this story, while maybe unknown in general, certainly to us before this, it still, of course, is him, and therefore it works very, very well. And I don't see how you can give him a 0 to style in any sense. And I am not doing that. We're all giving him 1s. All right. And Chris, bring us home. Do you recommend The Christmas Tree and The Wedding?
This is hard because on the one hand, I want to say no, but on the other hand, it is a short read, and because the author does not take an approving. He's not in any way, shape, or form glorifying what's going on.
He's merely telling you the story.
He's
what happened.
telling you the story, and there is a certain amount of amusement he has of the situation at the end, but he is... I'm talking myself into I have no idea. I'm going to pass this along to you guys.
I was initially going to say no, but I think that Dostoyevsky has a barrier to entry.
Fair point.
If you're trying to jump into... I read a number of his works, and the first thing I read was Crime and Punishment in high school, of all things.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very difficult read, and I might not have finished it if it wasn't an assignment that was given. However, I've chosen to continue reading him.
Other works of his after that, yes.
And I think that this is if you're interested in would I like to read Dostoyevsky, here's a small sample,
a good primer.
Self-contained.
Yeah.
And here's what you have to look forward to in his larger works. And I think that there has a benefit for that. And that is why I'm giving it a 1 here.
Yeah, I mean, I largely build onto that. So, yes, it would be a good primer. What's happening?
No, go on.
I think it is a good primer for like, of course I've heard of War and Peace and Crime and Punishments, but
No, War and Peace was.
oh, sorry, you're right. Well, Crime and Punishment at least. What?
Brothers Karamazov.
Yes, the Brothers Karamazov. I'm sorry, I do confuse the Russian literature and
Notes
authors
from the Underground.
sometimes. Right.
What is it? Haunted.
But I'm saying like bigger, like more like weightier works. You might be intimidating, but this one is like probably 10, 15 minutes you can get through it. It goes pretty quickly, and yes, does serve as a sort of a sampler, if you will, of his style. And I would recommend it. Like again, it's this odd, sort of darkly quirky story of the era, but I still think it's thematically relevant, resonant to today. And yeah, I would recommend it as well. Like, you might as well, and if you like that, then there's much larger and more in-depth works that are in a similar vein and sort of expand upon all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 1. I have not, admittedly, I think I read another short story by God damn it.
Good old Fyodor. Just call him Good old Fyodor.
Any other time that I'm not an air, I can pronounce his fucking name. Mm-hmm. I actually can. Yeah, I think it's I do think it's a worthwhile read. For somebody who's not read a lot of his work, really any of his work, the second time I read through it was, cause I did read through it twice. He does have a nice flow to it. He does have a good, grasp of, to put visually everything there. And I think it's a really good read. I do.
And he's very weighty in his philosophy, like musings about life and
exactly
the unfairness
of
reality. So
yeah, I mean, given the fact that this is like a very short think piece, I think it is deserving of a recommendation.
I mean, of course, it's like I said, one of you said it's sort of the opposite / anti-Christmas Carol, and I always kind of like darker like things like that, especially on like the anti-Run for Life, and that appeals to me. So yeah, I'm pretty strongly recommend it. But even so, even beyond all those, for everything we just said. So any other final thoughts on it before I give it the scores?
Nope.
All right. So easily enough, we have in fact all given it a 10. So it is a 10. I don't know if it's a 10 story. I could maybe be convinced or like go backwards and retroactively give it a 2 to plot, but I think I'm going to stick with my 3. I don't think it's a perfect story, but we have given it hits points on our scale.
I think I'm biased enough that I would give anything he wrote a 10.
That's a fair point. You can admit that, and that's fine.
I'm going to repeat something I've said in the last few podcasts is the fact that we're addressing it narratively. And I mean, that is my recommendation. I agree with you, Scott. I don't think it is a 10 story in the annals of all the stories I've read. Probably wouldn't be up in the top 10, but I do think,
it is still a strong piece regardless.
It's a strong piece. And for the sake of our discussion and the way we judge things and from our analytic point of view, I think it's worthy of a 10 just on that basis alone.
Yeah. And that is fact what we have given it. So yeah, there you go. If you want to be a little bit more depressed around the holidays, even though this will come out like later on, but as I said, as of recording, it's just after Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Go find your old child brides to creep on and get out of my party. I have been Scott Darlow here with Jonathan Edenmanzer.
In capitalist America, banks rob you.
Of course. And Chris Morgan.
God damn it. I was going to do a variation on that. Happy New Year and all that shit.
Yep.
Best of luck to you all.
And we'll see you next time.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.